Hey, you all, happy Canada Day. Today is Canada Day, a great day to celebrate our great country of Canada. As the year went on, 2025 came in, Canada had faced great challenges. People across our border had continued to elect the wrong people to represent their great country of the United States of America. President Donald Trump got elected. And the same thing been happening here in Canada also. We had to watch who we've been electing, putting in power, represent our great country of Canada. Justin Trudeau, the people had asked that he step aside and let somebody else take his spot as Prime Minister, as people across Canada felt. He wasn't delivering on what he said he could, and neither was the Liberal Party of Canada. Those are the things what us Canadians, as a great nation, has to watch out for. It's not about themselves. It's not about the government themselves, the ones in power. It has nothing to do with them at all. It has to do with you at home and our great country of Canada. That's what it's all about. Us at home in this great country, and this great flag behind us. That's what it's about. It's not about the government of Canada, the people who we've been electing, and that's what's wrong. But people have been going in power. They've often been thinking that they're in power for themselves. And we've been seeing it over and over again. They've been running for that wealthy paycheck, that wealthy pension, so it benefits themselves, while the average Canadians go hungry, they go homeless. Canadians, including here in Nova Scotia. We all seen here in Nova Scotia a record-breaking high of homelessness. As our Nova Scotia government would turn their heads and look the other direction and say housing's not in crisis, when clearly it is. Canada is a great country to live in. We got to continue to make it to be a great country to live in. We got to continue to make it the lovely country that it remains to be. And how can we continue to make our great country one of the most beautiful countries in the world? We got to continue that. We got to continue our strong health care. We got to look after our men and women in uniform who went to war, fought during this First World War and other combat missions we were sent to defend this great country. Now, I'll admit, some of the stuff what President Donald Trump said is correct. Canada has to stop relying on other countries to look after its own nation. We got to stop relying on the United States of America to protect our great country of Canada. And like Trump said, well, if Canada doesn't have the feasibility to look after its country, and then Trump looked at our Prime Minister and he said, well, maybe Canada should become the 51st state of the United States of America, if that's the case. A lot of you Canadians took great exception to that, and you should. Because that just proves to show that our Canadian government, including our Nova Scotia government, are not aware of what's going on around them. They're dependent on other countries so they can conduct their duties when that should not be happening at all. Canada, the federal government, when we elect our federal government into power, it's their job to ensure that Canada has enough resources to defend its own nation from potential threats and the wrong people who want to threaten our great sovereignty here in Canada. Now, my opinion, I'd like to see Doug Ford become the leader of the Conservative Party of Canada, never mind Pierre Poilievre. This few months back, we seen a federal election. A lot of people speculated Pierre Poilievre will become the next Prime Minister of Canada. That never happened. In fact, Pierre Poilievre even lost in his own seat, in his own riding. He lost his seat. And what does that tell you? During the federal election, Canadians were worrying about their country of Canada. More Canadian patriotism came out than it ever did. I believe Pierre Poilievre was not the person to become Prime Minister. I believe he will if he wipes his nose clean and if he's more open-minded on what he's doing and saying. But I also believe that Doug Ford should be giving Pierre Poilievre a good run for his spot as leader of the Conservative Party of Canada. As time went on, I've seen Canada go through great challenges. And there is, besides President Donald Trump wanting to make Canada his 51st state, which he had backed down from. But there's another threat across inside of our own borders. Alberta, the province of Alberta, wants to call for a referendum and make a separatist movement to go independence, where Alberta will become a nation of their own. That's a sign that our great country of Canada is falling through the cracks with the wrong people in office. No province in Canada should feel to the point that they want to separate from our country. Our government, our federal government, who we elect, is supposed to be there so no Canadian feels left out. No Canadian feels left behind. And that's what's happening here in our country of Canada. And that's because we've been electing people in office at the provincial, federal levels of government when they should never have been elected in the first place. This last provincial election here in Nova Scotia, they had in a provincial election, and what was wrong with that election? Not one Nova Scotian was interested in any of the political leaders of these political parties that were running. Not one. Tim Houston called the election because it favored himself. And that's what's wrong with government. People in office. They're in office to benefit themselves and not you at home. Affordable housing should never have fallen in crisis, but it had. We're bringing more and more migrants into our great country of Canada. Not able to look after our own people, but yet our federal government will look after these migrants who are coming to our country, not only taking your jobs from you, but taking the housing away from you. The government will look after these migrants over its own Canadian people, and that has to end. Really needs to end. Mark Carney became Prime Minister when Justin Trudeau stood aside, when you Canadians asked him to step aside, when you weren't happy with his service as Prime Minister that he was bringing to you. You guys have that right to do so, because that's what Canada's all about. A diplomatic, free country for you at home to be free at your opinions. Imagine living down in the United States. No health care. No retirement pensions. You work till the day you die, pretty much. Could you imagine facing arrest because you spoke your opinion? Even though that happens here in Canada, but that just proves that us Canadians got more work to do. We need to protect our freedom of speech. Stop government. Stop politicians from sending the police in your direction because you spoke your opinion, because you said something what they don't like. That needs to change. Often the police will say, we'll charge you with a criminal harassment charge if you continue to contact that political representative that you're calling. That's what they do. And that's why us Canadians are going to stand aside and form together and go after government so our great nation is respected for the country that it is. No person should feel intimidated by any police officer. No courts should be allowed to threaten your independence, your democracy, your freedom of speech for exercising that right. That's what the courts do. They often give you a low-budget, low-paying lawyer so they can't represent your property, and that's what they do. And that just proves that us Canadians are going to work better to defend our great nation of Canada. We got a lot of work to do. A lot of work to do. This past June, the community of Austria Lake had a forest fire. The province of Nova Scotia continues to put Nova Scotians at risk, including Canadians. Why is that? Tim Houston, the Nova Scotia government, including other past governments, knowingly knew that they had to ban open-air campfires and brush fires from the month of April to the month of November. Because people are setting brush fires too close to the trees. They're not complying to the laws set out before them, to the point that they're putting your livelihoods at risk and your way of life at risk. We got to bring that to an end. Tim Houston don't want to do that. Why is that? Because he's making more money off these fines to the point he don't want to do what needs to be right. He don't care if your house burns down. He don't care if your livelihood's interrupted or destroyed. He don't care you're going to work for a job that pays next to nothing, and that's the sacrifices what you Canadians make at work. No, I seen families go through a divorce because their family members are working such long hours of service to a company that they go through a divorce because their wives or husbands, whatever the case may be, had had enough. They're not around their families as much as what they should. And to top it off, employers are very, very unappreciative of the work and sacrifices what you Canadians give them to help run their businesses. And that's another reason why here in Nova Scotia, the unemployment rate is at an all-time high. It's disgraceful how Nova Scotia is being run. The NDP proven they got no worthy leader. They won by sheer luck. The Conservative Party, Tim Houston, the man got to go. Look at the Liberal Party. They got Ian Rankin. He might as well be leader again if he's acting as the leader right now. But, Canada is a great, beautiful country to live in, and we got to keep it that way. So I got to say, happy Canada Day to all you Canadians across Canada. Don't matter if you're a celebrity, it don't matter what you are. Happy Canada Day. And like I said, our work's still cut out before us. We got to make our great country the great country that it once was. And I believe, this is my belief, I believe Canada will get a hold of itself and put itself back on the right track again. But you, the people, are the only ones that can make that happen. You, the people, got to go after these political parties, stopping them from allowing these people who pose a risk to your livelihoods and your great country of Canada for their own wealthy benefit that puts this at risk. And I'll admit, this here is a beautiful flag standing here behind me. Ain't that beautiful? Very beautiful flag is standing here behind me. And we're going to keep it that way. So my name's Adam Conrod. I'm saying happy Canada Day to all you Canadians across Canada.